Anna Rossini are here, and Mark Sanchez will join us coming up as well as we look forward to yet another week of huge games with huge playoff implications. It starts with the Browns and the Titans, both at 8-3. Titans 1 game up on Indy in the AFC South. Browns 1 game up for the top wild card spot, so everything is at stake. Then we have the Eagles at the Packers. Philly has lost 3 straight, now sitting a half a game out of first place in the NFC East, only really alive because of the tie. Green Bay, a game out of first in the entire conference. And then Monday, Washington and the Steelers, the only unbeaten left in the NFL, just played 2 days ago. Fatigue, a short week. Mike Tomlin knows his team better be ready.
Short one for us, a long one for Washington, and so we just respect that. We don't seek comfort. We realize that Washington doesn't care about our problems, or they're glad that we have them, and so we proceed with that understanding.
Here's one of the problems they have. The Steelers will go the rest of the way without their star edge rusher, Bud Dupree. It was confirmed yesterday, terrible injury, torn ACL, a major part of a Steelers pass rush that ranks first in the NFL in sacks this season, and he personally had accounted for nearly 20% of them. And normally I would start this conversation with our former Steeler, Ryan Clark, but actually it is a former Patriot, Rob Ninkovich, who provided some fascinating insight into the pressure of perfection. What do you think, Rob?
It's unnecessary pressure to be perfect, to be undefeated. Look, in 2007, the Patriots were undefeated. They lost the Super Bowl to a 9-7 New York Giants on that season. And I think back to 2015, we were 10-0, and we went into Denver to play in a snowy overtime game. They actually won on a crack toss, scored a touchdown on a crack toss. We lost that game. And I felt that pressure relieved because a perfect season doesn't mean anything unless you win the Super Bowl. And that 2007 Patriot team, I feel if they would have lost maybe 1 game in the regular season and didn't have that pressure of being perfect going into the playoffs, I think they would have won the Super Bowl. So I think the Steelers, look, you never want to play a game. Every single week you want to win every single game. I understand that. But they're starting to get and creep up into that high pressure, undefeated season status. And at 11-0, it's going to start coming on real hard and fast right now.
All right, so it's a fascinating way of looking at it. So, RC, you know Mike Tomlin so well. You played for him. How would you imagine he is handling that pressure with his team?
Well, you know, he used one of my favorite sayings that he always used, which is, you know what, people don't care about your problems, and most people are happy that you have them. And I think that's going to be his rallying cry for this week. That's going to be the way he gets his team motivated to know that they have to deal with this adversity to show that they can win games when the cards are stacked against them, or they can win games when there's been some obstacles put in their way. And he'll focus on each game to keep the main thing the main thing. And that's something else he always says, because the main thing is winning, and the main focus is winning that week. And Rob is right. There is going to be a little bit more pressure on the Pittsburgh Steelers, because when you're down in the fourth quarter, or when you're losing a game, or when you're not playing well, you aren't necessarily thinking about just losing against the Washington football team. It will be losing an undefeated season. But it's Coach Tomlin's job to keep them focused. It's Coach Tomlin's job to let them know where they're going and what they're dealing with.
I love the way he talks. The main thing is the main thing. The standard is the standard. There's a lot of definitive statements that come from Mike Tomlin every week. But Bart Scott, what do you think? A perfect season sounds like a fun, well, not a fun thing, but something to strive for to me. What do you think?
Well, you always strive for perfection, but sometimes losing is a necessary evil. You talk about, you know, sometimes when you win, you lose, and sometimes when you lose, you win. Because what happens when you lose, you're forced to analyze everything that can contribute to a loss. When you win, sometimes things that can make you lose get swept under the rug because you're fulfilled with the joy of getting your end result. And what we see is this Pittsburgh team is heavily flawed, but they got the feeling of winning, and because they got the end result. So a lot of things that they've done, like not really capitalizing in the red zone, turnovers, muff punch, these are all things that can rear their ugly head when things count the most. And if you do that and you lose that game, then who cares about you went into that game with an undefeated season? It's about getting the end result, and their end result is that ring.
Super quick, RC, I only have a minute here, less than a minute. But this is a game in which Washington has 11 days rest. The Steelers have 5. It's a non-conference game, so it actually would keep them ahead of Kansas City. In an honest moment, do you think Tomlin wants to see his team lose a game this year before they get to the playoffs?
Hell no. Hell no, ever. No, you don't ever want to lose. That's never how you go into a game. Now, was the focus to be perfect? Absolutely not. The focus was to win the AFC North, look to get a bye in the playoffs, be the AFC champion, and win the Super Bowl. But you don't ever go into a game planning to lose or wanting to lose or wishing to lose. Bart did speak about some of those things that happened against the Baltimore Ravens, but you can see by the post-game press conference, Mike Tomlin understands that. Mike Tomlin will focus on that, and they need to move forward in trying to win every single game they have an opportunity to.
All right, that is just one of the really big games coming up this weekend. Take a look at the AFC playoff picture. It is packed tightly. And when you get past the Chiefs, you look at the seeds 3 through 7. All of them 7-4 or better. As we mentioned earlier, 2 8-3 teams, Titans and Browns, play this weekend. The Browns, despite all the publicity this year, can actually clinch their first winning season since 2007 if they come away with a win. And Diana Russini, you are covering this matchup for us this weekend. What is the most important point in this game?
Greeny, I think the most obvious answer here is going to be the run game for both these teams. I feel like if you blink, you're going to miss all the action here. We obviously know Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb on one side going up against Derrick Henry, who always has his best production in the month of December. Since 2016, he's got more rushing yards and touchdowns than any running back in the month of December. We saw what he did last week against that Colts defense, who we know they were down some key players, but he basically took them to the yard, 3 touchdowns in just the first half there. So the run game is obviously the most important, but Baker Mayfield made a really good point this week. He said, we can all focus on that, but let's not forget about the quarterbacks here. Baker Mayfield and Ryan Tannehill have done a really good job of taking care of the ball. Baker Mayfield with just 7 interceptions, Ryan Tannehill with just 4. So this is going to come down to who can take care of the ball in the end, Greeny.
Bart, what do you think is at stake for Mayfield here?
Everything is in stake for Mayfield, his future as the leader of this football team. Because I said on this show a couple of weeks ago that nobody does less with more. He has 2 of everything. They've surrounded him with everything that he needs. He's going to step up and have to show up and show that he is a franchise quarterback. I think they believe that after his rookie year. I think that it's a lot of question marks about Baker Mayfield and the fact that they really haven't given him the keys to the car. They're putting him in the passenger seat. He's not the driver. It's just running game. But if you're going to give a guy $35, $45 million, you should be able to trust him, because the more money you give him, the less of those luxury pieces you're going to be able to maintain. You have 2 of everything, 2 tight ends, 2 great tackles, 2 great running backs. And Baker Mayfield should have this team a lot better than this. I understand the record is good, but the play is spotty at best.
We'll see where they wind up making that decision. This game could go a long way towards deciding it. That's a big one in the AFC. How about in the NFC? You have Green Bay against the Eagles, 8-3 Packers. Eagles have lost 3 straight, and the quarterback is reeling. Green Bay, meanwhile, right now the 3 seed in the NFC, favored to win each of their 5 remaining games according to our analytics. And so let's take a closer look at that one here and bring in RC and Rob Ninkovich. And listen, Rob, as we talk about the Packers, clearly Aaron Rodgers is playing as well as maybe he ever has and as well as anybody in the league. But does that team have enough defense for Aaron Rodgers to carry it back to the Super Bowl?
Well, if you look at the Bears game, they might. So last year they were opportunistic. They created a lot of turnovers. This season they haven't created as many turnovers, and they're kind of middle of the pack. So I think that if they can get a push here to the final part of the season and into the playoffs, and their defense can step up against the Bears. I know it's the Bears, but they created 3 turnovers against the Bears. They had a strip sack fumble recovery for a touchdown. So when you can create those plays on defense, it takes the pressure off the offense. We all know that the Packers have a great offense. Aaron Rodgers, he can help you win every single week with what he can do offensively. But if you do not play defense in this league, it's going to be really, really tough to keep up. So if they want to do anything in the playoffs, they're going to have to make a final push here at the end of the season, and their defense is going to have to step up.
That's fair. RC, it feels like all the really good teams in the NFC are flawed. The Green Bay flaw is their run defense. Do you believe it's too much for them to overcome? Can Aaron Rodgers overcome that flaw?
You know what? I don't necessarily know if it's too much for them to overcome, because when you look at some of the teams they'll face, they won't necessarily be run-heavy football teams, but Seattle Seahawks are coming along now that Chris Carson is healthy. Obviously, we have Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray in New Orleans, so you will face some teams that are able to be formidable in the run game. And let's not, and Bart kind of talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers falling for the banana in the tailpipe by winning all of these games. don't forget, last year the Green Bay Packers were 13-3. The Green Bay Packers won the NFC North, and then they got taken to the woodshed by the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And so we have seen this story before. Obviously, we look at this year as Aaron Rodgers is playing a lot better, and this offense is moving the football better. But we saw the Green Bay Packers go down this road. And if anybody's ever going to use the Chicago Bears offense with Mitchell Trubisky, once benched, now playing as a barometer for how well their defense is playing, everybody's going to be good the last 5 weeks. And so for the Green Bay Packers, just about continuing to ascend, continuing to play well. But please, let's not look at what we do against the Chicago Bears to say that we're good at anything.